Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Spill, a movie night podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea. Film Spill, if you already don't know, is a podcast that comes out every week, and we talk about a movie by a female filmmaker every episode. We also discuss women in the entertainment industry in general. We play slumber party type games, spill entertainment gossip, and get to know each other and our guest. This week, we have a very special guest, Jordan, who is back on for season 2. If you don't remember or haven't listened to the previous episode where she was on, she is the founder and EP for ONYX.
Yep, I founded ONYX and now I'm here.
And since, starting ONYX, you have directed so many films and you're currently working on your new film, Strawberry.
Yeah, so Strawberry is actually completely done. We finished it, I think, a week ago. So it's all done and ready to be submitted to festivals. But yeah, that's my most recent film.
And what do you see yourself doing in the future with your directing career?
Yeah, so I'm actually applying to grad school right now. I'm applying to AFI, the directing program. So if I do get in, then I will be going this fall and getting my master's in directing and hopefully directing, a few films. If I don't get in, then I'm just going to continue making short films and then hopefully, getting better and better so I can direct my first feature.
And what made you decide that you wanted to get your master's in film?
Yeah, because mostly from AFI, because it's just such a good school, and I know that I'll be able to use those 2 years to just completely focus on directing, instead of having a job and balancing, being creative on the side. I'd get to kind of use that time to do it full time and also learn from some of the best professors in the country. So
that's awesome. So you would take off of work, you would leave work and just focus on getting your master's.
Yeah. They actually tell you cannot have a job while you're going there because it's that intense. It's like a very intensive 2 years.
Wow. That's like nerve-wracking, but exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. It's very hard to get into. So just fingers crossed. I'm submitting my application very soon. It's due December 1st. So yeah.
Do you want to talk about your requirements? Like, what did you have to do to apply?
Yeah, so I had to make a 5-minute long film with the prompt, a conflict. So as you know, every film has a conflict in it. So it was a very broad prompt. So I had to do that, and they encouraged us to make a very bare bones film that doesn't use, a bunch of very fancy equipment, but focuses on storytelling. And then submit 10 minutes of a film I've already directed, and it had to be just me directing it, not co-directed. So I submitted 10 minutes of Strawberry. And then I had to write 3 essays, one essay about each film, and it was like a page long. And then a 3-page essay that's called your narrative statement, and it basically explains who you are and why you want to direct, and who your influences are and why you choose AFI. And then I had to do 2 professional letters of recommendation, and I got 2 of my very favorite people that I've learned from in this industry. They're both women of color. And one of them's an exec at Raimi Productions, and one of them's one of my professors. And I took 3 or 4 classes from her. She's really cool. And then just a transcript and a resume. So,
oh my gosh, that's so much.
Yeah, definitely a lot.
That's a lot of organization, keeping track, all right, what did I do? Check that off.
Exactly. It was a whole process. I felt like I was back in school,
Now, have you ever considered that if you don't get in, that you would consider to go to other schools for like to pursue your master's degree?
I don't think so. I think if it would be AFI or bust. And if I don't get in this year, maybe I'd try next year. Because you can just keep trying. But if I don't get in, then it's not a huge deal. And I just, keep making my own projects and working.
I feel that. I love the determination. That's why I'm like sending all positive vibes. And I really hope that you do get in because you have put in a lot of work and
Thank you,
it took a
Chelsea.
lot. I'm really excited for what we have in store for this episode. So thank you so much, Jordan, for recommending We're All Going to the World's Fair. What made you want to talk about this film?
Okay, this film is crazy. Like, I saw it in the theaters when it came out. So first of all, I came into it not knowing much about it. Just knowing that Alex G did the soundtrack, and Alex G is one of my favorite artists. I've been listening to him for a long time. So I knew he did the score / soundtrack. So I was like, okay, like he's never done that before. And he's more just like an indie artist that like you listen to on Spotify. So I never really thought about him doing score or soundtrack. And so I knew the kind of movie that he would do score for would totally be like Alex G vibes. And if you listen to Alex G, like it's just very like pared down, like kind of like naturalistic, a little weird music. So I was super excited going into it. And then when I watched it, I was just completely blown away because I've never seen anything like it before. And then I found out that the director is non-binary, and I loved that. I thought that was really cool, and I had no idea going into it. I don't know. There's just a ton that I'm so excited to break down about this movie. It's just very different.
Yeah, I didn't even hear about the movie before you told me about it, and I was able to find it really quickly. And that's what I love about a film is that I'm able to find it quick and for free. And I really love the color of like the cover art for it. I'm like, okay, this already looks trippy. And I love this. Like I love trippy feel movies.
Yes.
When I watched it, it took me a bit to really understand what was happening, right? Because I didn't know the backstory. Now, fast forward to when I was doing the research for this movie, it all started to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
We'll definitely get into more of the specifics. And before we do that, I want us to give this week's episode shout out.
Woo.
So this week, we will be discussing The Sex Lives of College Girls, created by Mindy Kaling and Justin Noble. I always ask my guests, have you seen this show?
Yeah. So I saw the first, there's not another season out, right? I saw the
It did. It came out.
Oh, what?
Yeah. What? 2 episodes.
Okay. I'm so excited to see these next 2 episodes because I loved the first season. I thought it was so good, and I watched the whole thing. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, I binged the whole thing too. It was so good. The comedy was like on point. It wasn't like dry comedy that you get, but I don't know if it's because it was also like so relatable and like their characters are all so different and written so well.
Yeah, I thought the characters were what really like pulled me in because they're all very different. I really liked the character that Timothée Chalamet's sister plays. I think she's my favorite.
Yeah, Pauline Chalamet. I was so shocked when I found out that they were siblings. Like, I'm like, you've been siblings all along?
It's so weird, but I can see it. Like, they look alike.
So for anyone who doesn't know what the show is about, it's about 4 18-year-old freshman roommates at Essex College in Vermont who are a bundle of contradictions and hormones. These sexually active college girls are equal parts lovable and infuriating, especially Pauline Chalamet's character, Kimberly, because she's so like vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And she's like that witty character that is like so nice, and she lets people walk all over her, and she's like oblivious to like what's going on. So yeah, I like her character too. The director shout out goes to Danielle Eisman, who directed season 2, episode 1 and 2. And she's the only female director that's directed 2 episodes back to back for the show. So I thought that's pretty awesome that she really kicked off season 2.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, so I'm really nervous but excited for the slumber party type game this week.
Okay.
So this week we're going to be basing it on the film. So we're diving into what creepypasta is and the whole scary side of the web. And yeah, what do you know about creepypasta? Or what did you know about it previously?
Okay. So, I direct horror films. I'm a big horror person. So I grew up like reading creepypastas on Reddit. So that's why like this film did kind of touch me. And so I'm very familiar. Like sometimes I'd be in the car like on a road trip and I just look them up and read them and I'd get hella scared. I've always been a scaredy cat and just like very intrigued by all things like paranormal and supernatural because I feel like it's because I believe in them, and so that tends to scare me more. Like I'm very like there's more than meets the eye out there.
Yeah, and like honestly, I feel like anything's possible. I'm a true believer of the unknown. But I think that's what makes a really good story as well, is when you can open up your mind to like possibilities to what else could be out there. Like, for instance, in this, we don't really know what's capturing her in like internally, if she is being affected by the game that she's so-called playing, or is it just a psychological thing, you know?
That's a part of the film that's really cool, and it reminds me of like my childhood.
So do you have any creepypasta stories that really spooked you when you read them?
Yeah, so I was trying to find it, and I think I found it, but it's like in an archive, like it's not actually on Reddit. But there's one called 1999, and basically it's about like this person who's recalling like this show that he would watch when he was young, and it's called like Mr. Bear's Cellar. And it's basically like a show about a guy wearing a bear mascot costume who would get a new visitor into his cellar every day. And it was always a kid. And the show was like filmed with a camcorder. So it was like not very good quality. And he would just watch the show. Basically, like as you read it, you figure that it's like a guy dressing up in a bear costume who like kidnapped these kids and is like making a show like with them. So it's really creepy.
What? That is so trippy. The one that I picked had to do with the smiley face. And I've been seeing a lot of like smiley face things. I don't know. There's a new movie, or I don't know if it already came out, called Smile.
Oh yeah, Smile is really good. I saw it.
You did?
Yeah, it's really good. I thought it was going to be really cheesy based on the trailer, but it was actually good. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, okay. All right. I have to take a watch. But it's pretty much like this person's like walking down the street and they see someone who's like dancing, but like dancing kind of like off. And then they're like smiling and like they're like smiling to like this guy.
Yeah, I've read this one for sure.
Yeah, and that they like keep following this person who's like just like walking. But that's like what pretty much happens in this story. And then the story of Slender Man, I remember when that became viral and people became famous because they made a made up YouTube like story series on how like Slender Man is like following them.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that. As a kid, that scared me so bad.
Yeah, me too. I was so vulnerable and like gullible, and I thought that it was like legit. I didn't know it was fake.
And there was a Slenderman video game. It was really creepy.
Really?
Yeah, basically like you were walking in the woods at night in the video game and you had a flashlight, but the flashlight was dying. And basically you were trying to avoid like seeing Slenderman or something. It was really creepy.
That's really creepy.
Yeah.
I would not play that game. There's this thing that was going around the internet back in like early 2000s, because I remember my siblings used to scare me with it, but I don't know if you remember it. So you would watch a video, and this was when YouTube first became like a thing, right? Or even seeing videos on the internet was a thing.
Yeah.
So you would watch a video of like a song, right? And you would be jamming out to this song, and then all of a sudden, like something creepy would pop up on the screen.
Got the freaking big face that's like a creepy
Yeah.
face. One time I was watching that and the face popped up on the screen and I ran and got my dad and I made him close the page because I couldn't do it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it would happen so often. So I was terrified to open like any fucking video on the internet because I thought that it was going to stop and something was going to pop up.
That was totally a trend. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Crazy.
my gosh. I feel like that it was more then than it is now. Like that's why I was so shocked that there's still a community and like people can still watch like YouTube videos on Creepypasta.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I think yeah, definitely was more trendy like when we were kids for those scary things on the internet. Like I feel like now everyone's kind of desensitized and like we're used to like that kind of stuff, so it's not like very scary anymore. That's what's interesting about the film is like it's definitely not a true horror film. I wouldn't even say it's like horror. It kind of like captures a feeling, of kind of like
Mm.
loneliness.
And the isolation and how you just turn to the internet for like that safety, comfort space, or just to have a community. Yeah, I remember I was on the internet way too much as a kid because it was
Yeah.
becoming such a big thing. And now we like criticize kids for being on the web, but I'm like, I was on the web a lot too.
Ooh, yeah, 100%. Like when it's kind of a newish thing for you, like you just want to be on it all the time. Like I remember I really loved social media. I got a Facebook like when I was 11 or 12. And I think maybe being on social media that early was kind of, I don't know, maybe I could have gone on it later because there's like a lot on there, and like Omegle like chat rooms I feel like are so scary for kids to be in because you're chatting with anonymous people that could be like child predators.
And we did it so freely. Like I remember going to sleepover as we're like
Yep.
tee hee, go on Omegle
Yes.
and
Yes.
chat to strangers. And then you would always see someone jerking off. And it was so easy for us to access that. And that's why there was a lot of crime rates that started to go up because people started chatting with random strangers online, going to meet up and getting snatched up. Like, you
Yeah.
know what movie still freaks me the fuck out to watch? The Megan Goes Missing.
Oh my god.
That one just like I can't fully watch that movie.
100%.
So
Like there's that Black Mirror episode called Shut Up and Dance. Did you see Black Mirror, like that, all the episodes?
I haven't seen all episodes, but I have seen like a handful, but I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that one's really crazy because basically it's like a guy and he's like watching porn or whatever, and someone hacks his webcam and films him like watching it and also like what's on his screen, and we don't know what it is that he's watching. And basically they blackmail him and they make him do all this crazy shit, or they threaten to like send the video to his family and friends. And then at the end, it's revealed that he was watching like child porn. So like basically it's like terrible what he was doing, And so it makes sense like why he went through all of these things to like cover it up or whatever. That it captures this era of like people can hack your webcams, they can like blackmail you, they can threaten you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And even just by like a click of a link, and even through text messages, they try to get you too. Like you can easily, by accident, just click a link and them have all of your information.
Oh yeah, I'm so wary about those. Like I just never open them or click them.
Yeah, me neither. Like I don't even care if I know where it's coming from, I'll just delete it. I'm like, if I need to seek further, I'll just go on the app or whatever the case may be. Well, let's get into this week's film. So today we're going to be talking about We're All Going to the World's Fair, directed, written, and edited by Jane Schoenbrun, which is a horror/thriller film that came out in 2021. We're All Going to the World's Fair is available to watch on HBO Max, Prime Video, YouTube, and Google Play. This discussion will contain spoilers for the film, so if you haven't already seen it, go watch and come back afterwards to hear our thoughts. Do you want to tell us about We're All Going to the World's Fair?
Yeah, so We're All Going to the World's Fair follows teenager Casey. Casey is a very lonely teenager. She's kind of just in her room in her house, and then the area around her house for the entire film. So it's very much like a one location type of film. It really shows the isolation. And then the only person that she really interacts with outside of the internet is I believe it's her dad. And her dad is just comes home from work sometimes. I don't even think we see his face. He barely interacts with her. They don't eat meals together or anything. Yeah, it's winter break, so she doesn't go to school or anything. And she's just sort of very lonely, and she turns to the internet to kind of keep her company. And she decides to do this challenge called We're All Going to the World's Fair. For those of you who didn't grow up I guess in the early 2000s, there were a lot of challenges in the early 2000s when the internet first became a thing. And yeah, and the cinnamon challenge.
Oh yeah, eating a spoonful of cinnamon.
Yeah. So there's definitely challenges more recently, but in the early 2000s there were a lot of more creepy ones, like the We're All Going to the World's Fair one, especially on Reddit. But basically she decides to participate in this challenge, and it's basically this weird thing where you go through this little ritual, right? You say we're all going to the World's Fair, we're all going to the World's Fair. You do some other things, and then apparently you're supposed to be going through a transformation, and you kind of turn into a different version of yourself. Is that what you kind of got from it?
Yeah, it's supposed to capture you transforming.
Yeah, which is they weren't very clear about how you transform or what necessarily is going to happen to you. So basically Casey does it, and she does the challenge, and through it, she meets one person in particular on the internet who saw her doing the challenge and is concerned about her because they've done a bunch of research into this challenge, and they're concerned about the people that participate in it. I think some people have even died or something. And then this person grows a very intense interest in Casey.
Yeah, that some may say seems kind of predatory.
Yeah, that person is an adult man, and it's a weird relationship because it's he definitely seems very actually concerned for her and just wants to be her friend. But throughout the movie, it grows definitely closer. But yeah, the movie's interesting because it's slowly paced. It's kind of like a character study into Casey, and it's basically studies her isolation, loneliness, how she's coping with that loneliness through this challenge. It's sort of kind of a descent into this really negative place that she kind of goes into. And we don't know if that's because of the challenge or if it's because she's a girl who's lonely and doesn't have any friends and doesn't get any interaction from her parents and is going through a very intense depression.
Yeah, and there's moments that are captured in the film that's what really makes you question it. So one scene where she has her like favorite stuffed animal and starts like ripping it apart. And that is one of like the most like photogenic scenes. Like, I don't know, I like photogenic, but like picture perfect, where like the colors are just so like vibrant, and it gives you like that like trippy feel.
Yeah, it's very visual. Like, she has this stuffed animal, she carries the stuffed animal through the whole film, and it's like her best friend, basically. And
She is just like randomly raging. So
yeah,
this is like where you think that like, okay, maybe it is starting to affect her, because before this scene, JLB sees footage of one of her nights, because she's like documenting her sleeping. And he fast forwards to like probably like a 2 a.m., the witching hour, close to the witching hour. And she is staring into the like light bulb, like really creepily. So
yeah,
that's where you start seeing like this intensity, like, okay, is this paranormal, or is she just like doing this purposefully,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Because each like factor, like each like physical, I guess, interaction that she's starting to have with the camera is like different. And there's nothing happening to her surroundings. So that's what also makes you question that. Like, you don't see like a chair flying and you're like, oh no, she's getting like possessed or something. Like, no. It's just her personally dealing with the changes that this game is apparently having on her.
It's so interesting. Okay, also like the way that the film was shot is interesting, because it was shot like on a photo booth for like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it, which is crazy, because I think the director even says that yeah, she really like liked just like the feel of photo booth, and like as a medium, like, which is so cool, because I've never heard it described that way, but it actually is kind of a vibe, like just like the like aesthetic of photo booth.
Yeah, I feel like as a creative, you do seek out like just kind of like the vintage touch. It's like a personality kind of like trait that you can bring to your film. And I liked it too,
Yeah.
because I think it was smart. We do see these types of films like Unfriended, I believe.
Yes.
And there's one other movie that had to do with it being on like a Zoom
There was
meeting
one
chat.
that just came out that was like they were like on a Zoom type thing. Oh my God. It got really good reviews. It was like during the pandemic, because like that was kind of one of the only ways they could shoot a film is through Zoom, and they actually did shoot it only through Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's smart. There was I follow some like film people on Instagram, and this recent filmmaker who is a female just made a short that's them on, I guess, Tinder, creating a profile. And it's so smart. And so she just brings up the concept that like you don't need all this fancy stuff to make a good film. You can literally have the bare minimum as long as you have a good story. And that's why I really like appreciate these stories that primarily base their plot in just like one location, because it's hard to do. It's hard to keep something entertaining and switch up and to like really like bring up like the message or like the point that you're trying to get across.
100%. And I also think that when you're making a film through mediums like Tinder, like you just said, or Zoom or photo booth, like it feels more visceral and real, like because we can all relate to using these mediums. It's actually smart because first of all, it's easy to use, like it's as a filmmaker, like obviously like making a film through these things is like much easier than renting like an Alexa mini or something to shoot on. It's smart because of that, but it's smart because it also creates this kind of familiarity and like relatability that you wouldn't get through shooting on a high quality camera. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone. And I think that that's really beautiful if you can make really quality, like relatable film out of that. And I think We're All Going to the World's Fair really does that.
A lot of people don't see the difference in the type of equipment that you use. And I know one of the equipment that we're talking about is just having a camera. What have you noticed in your previous films with the different types of cameras that you use, or have you used the similar camera each time?
Yeah, no, I've used a good amount of different cameras. We shot Strawberry, my most recent film, on Alexa Mini because I kind of wanted the best of the best for this one. Like, and that was just a beautiful camera to use, but it's very expensive and it's kind of like a top of the line camera. I've shot a good amount of my films on a Blackmagic because I have a bunch of friends with Blackmagic, and that's definitely like lower quality than Alexa Mini, but it is, it gets the job done. My found footage film that I did on Rio was shot on like a Sony or something someone already had, and that kind of lower quality camera was really good for more of a like found footagey type thing. I really want to shoot films on different mediums. Like, I want to use my phone more because we know that you can make a good film shooting on an iPhone because the one who did the Florida Project and Tangerine, what's his name? Sean Baker. Yeah, so he shot Tangerine, which was, I think, his first feature. I could be wrong, on like 4 or 5 different iPhones, and one of them was like the iPhone 5. And it gives it this like very like real feel, very tangible.
I think people and audiences connect with things that are more personable and that they can relate to. If you want to capture an audience's attention, that's definitely like a number one thing that I feel like I look for, is like, how can people relate to my story?
Exactly, yeah. And I think, using very humble devices and mediums to make your film is definitely an artistic choice that really works a lot of the time if that's like what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's amazing how far we've come with just technology in general, and the fact that we can use our iPhones to make content. I've been trying a lot more now to use my iPhone to create content. And now that I've been doing it more, I'm like, wow, like, why didn't I start this sooner?
Yeah, like there's no excuses anymore. Like, there's nothing in your way. Like,
It's true. It's like the only excuses that are in the way are yourself, and the ones that you keep coming up for, you not producing it. So it takes a lot of work to make a film, but honestly, if you're really dedicated to doing it, it could happen. You can make it happen.
100%.
So I wanted us to get into the writer, director, and editor for this film, Jane Schoenbrun, who is a non-binary filmmaker and writer. Their pronouns are they, she. We're All Going to the World's Fair is their first narrative feature film. They are the writer-director for their upcoming film, I Saw TV Glow, which is being produced with A24. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I figured out that they were able to book this because once they landed in Sundance, Schoenberg got an agent, and then that helped them pave the way to their new film. And I didn't know that Emma Stone has a production company, but this film is like in works with Emma Stone's production company, Fruit Tree.
Fruit Tree is such a cute name for a production.
Yeah.
I had no idea either. Like, give me a job there. Like,
right? Me too. I was like starting to Google it. I'm like, careers.
yeah, right. I would too. Yeah.
I also saw that, so they went to Boston University for college. I'm talking about Jane. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. But Jane went to Boston for film, and then they moved to New York. They didn't start their film career until they were in the Gotham Film and Media Institution. So I wanted to kind of spread that message to anyone who doesn't know the Gotham Film and Media Institution. I didn't know who they were until I started learning about who Jane is as a person, and how they got their film education from. But this is a creative space that celebrates and nurtures independent film and media creators, providing career-building resources, access to industry influencers, and pathways to wider recognition. If you're interested in learning more about the Gotham Film and Media Institution, I will link their website in the show notes. And there is an upcoming class December 12th, and it's virtual. So if you want to take it, it's $75. The film premiered at the 2021 Sundance Film Festival on January 31st, 2021. A lot of things happened at the end of January. I don't know what it is. So, Jane Schoenbrun wrote the film during a dark period in their life before they began physically transitioning, reflecting on their experiences on the internet as a young queer kid in the early 2000s. At the time, Schoenberg spent most of their online life on horror film forums and writing fan fiction. And they did fan fiction on like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and one other one that I forget, but they're a Buffy fan.
Yeah, I am too. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is so iconic, and there's so much to dive into about Buffy. Like, I've seen Buffy used as like experimental, like in art museums, like as experimental like film pieces, like examining Buffy and stuff. There's like Buffy is very interesting. Like, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah. I know you were talking earlier about Alex G and how you were a fan, but it turns out Schoenberg was a fan as well and reached out to Alex G after they finished their film. And then they agreed to score the film, which is pretty awesome. And that actually happened or happens pretty often.
I would say like it's so interesting because you can actually get, bands or artists on board to score your short film or to score your feature film more easily than you would think. Like, oftentimes, artists or musicians, they haven't ever done it before, and they love movies, and it's been like a dream of theirs to score a film. So I've noticed that, like, even if you just shoot them an email, shoot their manager an email, DM them on Instagram, like, it's actually just so easy to get your favorite artist on board. Like, we just did that with one of our shorts at ONYX, Acquired Taste. There's this one song called Cannibal Queen by the band Miniature Tigers. And Miniature Tigers are actually pretty big. Like, they're a pretty big indie band. And basically the director, Emily, who's a part of ONYX, she just DM'd them on Instagram, and they gave her the rights to use the song, for a certain amount of money. But oftentimes, like, bands love having their songs in film, and would love the chance to score a film. So
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know that happened for Acquired Taste.
yeah, it's really cool.
Wow. I see. That's why it's always good to know other bands, indie bands, and not just focus on just like the regular pop artists that we listen to on a daily.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel like if you have an indie band, or if you have a smaller artist, not even smaller though, because, for example, like Alex G is pretty big. Like, he's definitely like indie, but I would say like he's a household name, and like for people that like indie music. And so it's really cool that Jane was able to get him on board. But it's funny because it's just the movie and then his music they align. So I can see why he agreed to do it.
I think that it's nice to see other creatives supporting other creatives. Like, he obviously didn't know where this film could go, but the fact that they believe in it from the start and want to work on it is like pretty amazing. I mean, yeah, even though it's like for some sort of money, because they got to make their living too, but it's nice to see other creatives supporting other creatives regardless of their level of like stardom.
Yeah, no, like he probably had no idea where this movie could go. It could have gone nowhere. So it is really cool.
Do you see like marketing, or like do you think about marketing when getting people on board with your movie? So like Alex G was obviously a name and that could help promote the film. Do you think that that plays a role with how the marketing or just marketing your film?
100%. Like, once you have a name like Alex G attached to the film, that definitely helps. So that was probably a thought that ran through Jane's mind with it, because people who are Alex G fans are going to go see the movie, when they normally wouldn't, just to hear the score and to hear the soundtrack. So yeah, it's a very smart move, and I do think about that as well. especially like with talent, like attaching, you know, C-list, B-list, A-list talent to your film will always kind of bring their audience with them.
Now, I know in this film, this was actually Anna Cobb's debut role, which was incredible to see that her acting ability seemed like it was like years in training, not that this was like her first time doing something like this. And she doesn't even like horror all like that.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's such like a naturalistic performance. So I can only assume that Jane kind of created this very like safe, natural environment for Anna. Especially like depending on if they're using like pretty low-key technology to record the film and to make the film. I'm sure it kind of, maybe the room even kind of felt like, you know, Anna's own room, or they kind of probably, it's not just Anna who was incredible, like she was probably, her performance is a huge part of it, like her own ability to act, but like probably like Jane was able to also create this atmosphere that helped bring out that performance, you know, if the film was pretty low key. So I don't know, but it was really, really good. Like bone chilling performance.
Yeah, because definitely production design plays a part in creating that atmosphere. And if things were a lot brighter and things weren't as dark, using certain color schemes, so like the glow in the dark effect, that wouldn't work in just any kind of setting or room. You know, you have to bring or like know how to work with colors in order to bring out that certain like dynamic. And when she was watching the video as well, that was so trippy. I was like, am I getting like hypnosed right now?
Right. And are you talking about the videos when she was like in the shed?
That one, and then there's another one where like the videos are she's watching the like challenge and it just starts like flashing different colors like on her face. But you also see the video as well, like it shows you a clip
For like a long time, right?
for like a long time.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was crazy. There's just like the way it was shot, there's just like some really long, drawn out moments where we're just kind of with her. And it takes like a very talented actor to be able to like just be so natural for that long and to just draw us in. And as well as like Jane creating this like environment of it being like so natural as well.
Yeah. I wanted to figure out how Jane was able to find Anna because I know it's such a lengthy process finding your like lead actor or actress for your film. Jane didn't know which route to do, like to have either a male or a female like protagonist in the film. They spent a very dark 2 days reading through every single entry on the YouTube wiki of every significant YouTuber, wondering if there was someone out there magnetic enough to play Casey. And then they saw Anna's headshot. She reminded me a little bit of Billie Eilish, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting look. It was also an incredibly different headshot. It was taken in a bathroom mirror, not professionally. It looked like something Casey would have uploaded in the film.
Oh my God. I love that. See, this is like just another example of like how like something like very high quality and like very professional isn't always like the route that like you need to take. Like even just like this person's headshot being more raw and naturalistic and like real drew the filmmaker to cast her. So it's like, you know, you don't always need this fancy headshot, fancy equipment. Like if this is the vibe of the film, then like, you know, they work together.
Maybe she did, because I didn't look too much more into it, but maybe she did read the synopsis for the film and was like, you know what? No, like this is how it should be. And this is what I'm going to submit, and like submitted that because I don't know, like I feel like some people just like automatically are like gravitated towards certain roles, like they were meant to play that role. How did you cast for your past films? Like how was the casting process for you?
Yeah, it's interesting with Strawberry because Strawberry was based off of a feature script that I wrote. And so I first wrote the feature. It's called Supernova. And in the feature, they're brunette with blue eyes because it's based off of a relationship that I had. Because I basically, like, the crazy story is that I was in like a toxic relationship in high school with a guy, and then like we broke up, and I ended up connecting with his ex-girlfriend and dating her, and that's how I discovered my sexuality. But me and her looked a lot alike, and so we both had brown hair and like light eyes. Hers are a little more green. But so basically I wanted the characters to have the same kind of coloring that we did in Supernova. But then with Strawberry, we had, so Strawberry, the plot is a little different from the feature. Like, it's about like a stuffed animal, much like the one that Casey has in We're All Going to the World's Fair, named Strawberry, and it's like a pink bear. But I also thought it would be cool if like the actors were redheads with freckles, because that's kind of like a strawberry. So I thought it would be cool if there was like another nod to the title with the way that they looked. So we just only looked for redheads, and like natural redheads with freckles. And that was so crazy because, you know, there's only a very small percentage of the population that are redheads with freckles. So it really narrowed it down just physically, first of all, which I've never narrowed my search down that small before. Usually we do like all ethnicities, all hair colors, everything. So that was interesting. And then we needed to find two people that looked alike, you know, like there are a bunch of redheads that don't look alike, you know. So that was really interesting, and our casting director Britt, who is in ONYX, really helped with that. And we ended up finding two people that really looked alike, Emily Gately and Daisy Titchener, and they slayed. So yeah, otherwise, you know, a lot of the time I like to use people that I'm already familiar with casting, because I like to have a really close relationship with my actors, and I like to be able to communicate with them very often when I'm like directing them. Like, I want to be able to just text them an idea, or like shoot them an article, or shoot them a film suggestion. So I like feeling really comfortable with them. So I've used my friend Mallory in a lot of my films. She's an actress, and it's just great when you can be very vulnerable and comfortable with people. So now that I have Daisy and Emily under my belt, hopefully I'll be able to work with them a lot in the future, because I know that they're amazing to work with. But yeah.
That's neat that you explain it like that, because I feel like we don't necessarily hear that very often. And we just see directors who do carry on the same actors or actresses to their films, but they don't explain why. So like you pretty much kind of explain, like, you want to have a great relationship with your actor or actress, and you want to be able to shoot them concepts and them to just kind of already understand how your creative brain works so they can execute your visions.
100%. It's like when you're working with actors, you need to be so vulnerable and open with them. Like, they need to be able to feel like they can do anything around you, because like oftentimes like what the character has to do is really crazy, you know, depending on what the movie is. Or and you want them to feel 100% comfortable with you, and you want to feel 100% comfortable with them, because you're doing weird stuff together, you know. Film is weird. So yeah, definitely, I think that's why people have their muses, and then they write roles for them, you know, with them in mind, because they've worked with them before.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's such a collaborative also field that a lot of the times people feed ideas off of each other. So sometimes someone else might have a better idea than you had in the first place, and it works better the way that they're performing it. And you're like, actually, I like this better. Let's keep this.
Yeah, depending on the kind of like director you are, or the kind of actor you are, like if you really trust your actors, then you should be able to like allow them to change lines and to change even parts of the script because they know their character like inside out at this point better than you, hopefully.
It's such a great moment when you're watching it on screen and you're watching their performance and they're giving you everything that you want plus some. You're like, this looks so good. Like, it's just such a good feeling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like when they've reached that potential that you were hoping that they could. It's great.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love it. I love making films, and
Me
just the
too.
whole process of it just makes me so like giddy, and yeah, I love
I
it.
never want to stop. Yeah, it's so different.
Even though this industry is draining physically, mentally, all the above, it's so rewarding. And when you finally see like your finished product, it's all worth it. It really is.
Yeah, it's very crazy, but it's kind of like there are a lot of other industries that are like this. I feel like I've been watching a lot of cooking shows and like when they're in the kitchen and they're like all screaming at each other and like going so quick and like it's like anything that you're like creating something as a group, I feel like is very like similar. Like when you're in a kitchen cooking and you're all working towards the same goal. It's similar to like being on set and like all like working towards the same goal. And it's just so fulfilling at the end. It's a lot of hard work, but it's very fulfilling.
Wait, what cooking shows have you been watching?
I've been watching the Master Chef with Gordon Ramsay.
I love that show. Like,
It's so
love
good.
that show. It's so good. And I look forward to it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, there's a
It's
new season, I'm there.
oh yeah. No, it's like and it's so competitive. I love it so
Wait, did
much.
you watch the recent season? The one that just
No,
came out?
I watched season 5. I just finished season 5. I'm like really behind.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're really behind.
Because that was like 2014 or something. So I'm excited to keep watching.
Yeah, oh my God, it's so great. So I actually started off with watching MasterChef first, and then I gravitated towards Hell's Kitchen, and Hell's Kitchen is just like just as good. I
Oh, I
love
love
it.
Kitchen. Yeah, I've seen a good amount of episodes of that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it just anything with Gordon Ramsay, I'm there.
I love Gordon Ramsay.
Me too. Oh my God, that's so funny that you love cooking shows too, because I talk about them all the time and like no one else watches them. And
Really?
I'm like, am I just like geeking out? Because I love freaking cooking shows.
Yeah, I love like any kind of competition show.
Mhm. Yeah, me too. Like I watched the Holiday Baking Championship.
That sounds fun.
It's I don't know if you watch, because I used to watch the Food Network a lot growing up. My
Yeah, me
sister
too.
was like really into it.
Yeah.
So
I was a big chopped fan.
oh my God, when I used to go to the hospital a lot, I like throw back to that. But I used to watch Chop all the time.
Yeah, it's the best. It's my
It
favorite.
is so good. You've been chopped. But I don't know if you know, like, so when I used to watch these shows, right, I was younger, and I would be like, oh, these are adults. They're so old. These
Yeah.
people are like in their 20s and their 30s. But now being in my 20s and seeing the people on the show are like my age, I'm like, damn. Like,
It's so weird. It's
it's
like
so weird.
I felt that way a lot lately with various things.
Yeah. Like what?
Just like whenever you see like someone in their 20s or 30s, yeah, like you said, like on a show or like, doing something that you remember like when you were a kid and you saw 20 something or 30 something doing something and you're like, they're old. They're like they're definitely like a classic adult, like classic age. And it's just weird because you don't really feel that way inside.
Yeah. No, for real. Like, I don't feel like my age.
Yeah. I feel like most adults maybe feel that way.
Yeah, maybe we can all relate to the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any last like thoughts or like comments that you'd like to say about the film?
I definitely love like the atmosphere basically. I think that's the main reason I love the film is the atmosphere it creates because I actually wrote a letterbox review on it and I'm just going to pull that up real quick.
Yeah. That's awesome. You do Letterbox too.
Yeah, sometimes. I don't do it for every film I watch, but if I have like thoughts. So I said, this film is something completely different and unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's tonally extremely melancholy and lonely, but simultaneously captures the feeling of being on the edge of something extremely dark and horrible. I think that that's a very vague sentence that I wrote. She's very much like, there's something going on, you know, inside of her, and something could go very wrong, you know, because like, trigger warning, suicide, but I think that that's sort of like what it's maybe like leading up to, you know, is like, and I think maybe we're all going to the World's Fair is sort of even maybe a metaphor for like being on the edge of like wanting to end your life. You'll feel unsettled, sad, but also oddly nostalgic, like you felt this way before in your teen years, or maybe you feel it now. Because I think we've all been there where we've been like very, very lonely and kind of turning to something to cope and to connect with people. Something to maybe even like save your life, or something, you know, to ground you. And yeah, it's like a weird thing in this movie, like turning to like a challenge, but it's kind of a metaphor, I think, for something. I said Anna Cobb is overwhelmingly vulnerable. You don't want to look away from her, especially when she's looking into your eyes. Because that's also something really interesting about this film, is like she's staring at you the whole time. Like it's pretty crazy. And then lastly, I say I'm really excited to see more from Jane Schoenbrun. Seeing films that break the mold like this remind me not to think inside the box. Even though it's tempting to conform, it's important to hold on to a feeling, take it, and ride with it. Because I think this film really captures like a feeling.
I think that was nicely said. It definitely does capture the feeling of vulnerability and seeking some sort of comfort or reassurance on the internet, and having that type of community that is not much talked about anyways, but is actually out there. You know, there's all types of different sorts of crazy, or like not crazy, but just like all types of just like random stuff online that we might not know of, because there's just so many different communities. And this film does a great way of depicting that and telling that side of stories, and maybe will encourage other people that have experienced the same thing but a different community who come out and make a similar film.
Yeah, there's like so much out there in the world, like for various like communities and like groups and stuff. And I think you know, Casey kind of finds hers in this, and it's a weird one, and it's like maybe not the healthiest, but yeah, it's definitely like a way to she's coping.
But thank you for listening. This has been Film Spill, a movie night podcast. Thank you so much, Jordan, for being a fantastic guest. I loved having you back on.
Thank you so much for having me. I had an awesome time as usual, Chelsea. You're an amazing host and such a good conversationalist and very interesting person. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. Thank you.
True.
Would you like to plug in your social media, your projects, and anything else that you're going to be working on?
Sure, yeah. My social media, my Instagram is at jordanrosephotos. We've got the ONYX Instagram, as always, at onyx.film. Watch Strawberry when it comes out, my short film. And then the rest of my films are available on my website, which is jordan-pfeifer, pfeifer.com.
You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. All are at Film Spill Pod. Tell a friend about the podcast if you like, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That'll help other people find Film Spill too. Special thanks to ONYX Films for promoting us. You can check out ONYX's other projects at onyx-films.com.
Until next time, don't cry over spilled films.